Thanks for coming to our video today. This is the Canton Public Library Adult Take and Make program for April, I guess, 2021, whatever month it is now. It's been a long year. We are going to be making bird's nest pendants today. This is a super easy jewelry project that involves a basic kind of wire wrapping around beads. If you've gotten the Take and Make kit from the library, it has everything you need in it to make 2 pendants. But if you're doing this at home without our kit, it's the supplies you need are pretty minimal. All you're going to need is some 24 gauge jewelry wire. This generally comes from the craft store on some kind of a spool. It might look like a spool of thread, or it might be this bigger kind of thing. I'm using 24 gauge. Anything on either end of that, like if you have a 22 or a 26 gauge, ought to be fine. You just want it to be thin enough that you're able to work it without any tools. You're going to need about 4 to 5 feet of it. That doesn't need to be exact. When I measured mine out, I just kind of stretched out my arm and cut it that way. We're also going to need some beads. So I'm using 6mm glass beads. These are, again, something you can find easily at a craft store or online. You can either choose ones that are all the same color, ones in complementary colors, whatever you want. This is one of those projects that no matter what you do, it's going to look nice at the end. And then in terms of equipment, if you have small jewelry tools like a pair of pliers and wire cutters, you can use those, but it isn't necessary. I'm just going to use a pencil and a regular pair of scissors. This wire is easily, you can cut it easily with scissors. You just obviously don't want to use your good scissors that you're then going to turn around and use on fabric. So that's it. Let's get started. Okay, so before I show you how to make these, I just want to show you some of the samples I had made. So these are using all the materials that you have in your kit if you have one of the library kits. I personally find that these look the best when you use 3 of the beads. 4 obviously also looks just fine. With this size bead, I find that using any more than 4 makes it hard to wrap the wire and then secure it afterwards. They just kind of flop all over the place and it ends up being hard to do. The process of making these, basically what we're going to do is we're going to put the beads onto the wire, then we wrap the wire around and around and around, and then we wrap the wire around itself in order to anchor it all together. And what I just want to show you here is that when you do that wrapping at the end, you can either do it kind of in a random fashion around so that the whole thing ends up looking more organic, like an actual bird's nest, or like I did on this one here, you can do those wraps kind of all in one place, and that ends up making the whole thing look a bit more like geometric, I guess. Either way is totally fine. This is one of those projects that, you know, you can let your creativity go, and if you are feeling especially creative, you can even just go completely off script. These are some pendants that I made just kind of messing around with different numbers of beads, and I just kind of wrapped the wire around randomly. So if the nest does not appeal to you, feel free to mess around and make whatever you want. So let's get started on making our pendant. So I'm going to get my wire. The length of wire that we have is a bit unwieldy to use. You will get used to it, but it's going to kind of snag on everything. And I especially, because I'm kind of jamming everything under the camera here, I may hit the camera or something with it. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our beads and we're going to just string them onto the end of the wire. So I've got the beads on the wire. I'm going to leave a tail of about 3 inches or so, and what I'm going to do is just kind of wrap the wire around and just twist this a couple of times just to anchor the beads onto the wire. So I've got my little tail here, oops, and then the long end of the wire going off to the side. we're going to ignore that tail for now until the very end. The next step here is optional. You don't have to do it. The only thing it does is it makes the it gives the wire a bit more texture. It makes it almost look hammered. So I don't know how well it's going to show up on camera, but here is a piece that I did this to, and you can see how it's got a little bit of like it's kind of kinked up a bit as opposed to my other wire here, which is smooth. So if you want to get that that texture, all you're going to do is take your pencil, and then you're going to wrap the wire around the pencil. You're going to create kind of like a spring. So once you've got that wrapped all around, you're just going to pull the pencil out, and then you're left with this spring. And what we're going to do now is straighten this whole thing back out again. And like I say, all this has done is it's just added that bit of texture. As you're straightening the wire out, you just want to make sure you don't get any really like folds in the wire. This wire will, if you kind of work it back and forth like this, it will eventually snap. So we just want to make sure that we don't get any of those like sharp corners in it as we're straightening it out. Okay, so now that step is done. So now we're going to go back to where I started earlier. And I'm just going to wrap the wire just in a circle around my beads. This does not have to be exact. You know, the wire is very malleable. If you don't like the shape that it ends up being, I tend to, as I'm doing it, I tend to find that the wire sometimes goes almost like in a triangle rather than a circle. That's fine. At the end, you can squish it any which way you want to make it go into the shape that you want. So you're going to wrap this around 5, 6, 7 times, something like that. There is no exact way to do this. You're going to just continue ignoring that tail as you're going around. And after you've gone around half a dozen or so times, you're going to find the other end of your wire, and this is where we're going to start wrapping this wire, because right now, obviously, as you can see, it's all very loose. There isn't anything holding it together. So what we're going to start to do is to wrap the wire around itself. So I've taken the wire and I've put it through in between the in between all the beads. So I'm going into that first loop there. I'm just going to pull this all the way through. You don't want to make this super tight, but you also don't want to leave it loose so you have a big loop hanging out or anything. And I'm just going to go through that spot again. Like I say, as you're working with the wire, just be careful that you don't make any sharp corners with it. And I'm going to go on this particular one with a more organic kind of a look. So rather than continuing to wrap in that one spot, I'm going to move around and go maybe to the other side of this blue bead here. You can start to see how it kind of begins to anchor itself. Let's see, so I've gone through the middle. You can see how the wire kind of does get kind of annoying after a while. It's always swinging around and getting in the way again. So I've done 3 wraps around the nest now, and that kind of holds it together. So you can see it's not doing that springy thing again like it was. What we're going to do now is we're going to flip the whole thing over. So it's kind of hard to see. Right now the front and the back look very similar. But we're going to flip it around so the back is facing us. And we're going to sort of weave the wire around the back of it to create a backing which will prevent the beads from kind of popping back through. So if I pull out one of the ones that I've already made, you can see that here's the front. And then on the back, I've just kind of crossed the wires all over each other to create a structure on the underside. And like I say, that helps to hold the beads in place so that they don't go through the other side. So this is another one of those, there is no one right way to do it things. We're just going to take our wire and just kind of cross it around the back a few times. So you're going to run your wire around, like through the wire, and then back across the back again. You can just kind of shove everything into place as you're going. So like here, I've come out here, and now I'm going to cross back over to the other side. Put the end through there. If you create loops or something, that's just fine. You can see I've just kind of squeezed in a couple of the loose ends. And I'm just going to keep doing that across the back a few times. If you're having a hard time getting the end of the wire to go through and then come back out, like sometimes you might poke the wire in and it kind of wants to go out the other side and you're having a hard time bringing it back up so you're on the same side that you're trying to work on, you can just get a pair of tweezers or something and use them to help grab the wire as you're pulling it through. All right, so I'm just going to I think I've got enough of a structure on the back here where it does have, you can kind of see it's holding the beads up now, so they're not going to fall through the nest. So I'm just going to run my wire through, kind of through the middle of the nest here, just to bring it out. And I've got, you can't really see in the video, I've got probably 1.5 feet of wire left, so I still have plenty. So I'm going to go back around and I'm going to do another couple loops around here. And then you just have to remember that any time you go around, you're just going to have to anchor those new loops again. So after I go around another, I don't know how many times I've done here, 3 or 4 times, I'm just going to run the wire around again. So I'm going, instead of going around, I'm going underneath here and coming back out in the center, just to hold the loops in place that I just made. So there's one loop. You can see here sometimes when I go to pull, it wants to kind of fold on itself. That's where I'm just straightening those folds out and making sure I don't get any of those in, because I don't want to break my wire. See, so right here, if I kept pulling on that, that might fold and crimp itself. I don't want it to do that, so I'm just going to kind of straighten out that loop. And I think I'll go around one more time just to make sure everything is nice and secure. And then as I finish my wrapping, you want to make sure you're finishing up near your tail here. So I'm going to come out here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take both the tail and I may have to do them separately rather than together, but I'm just going to loop. I'm just going to bring both of those around to the other side and make like a loop around the around my nest. So there's the long tail, and there's my original tail. All right, so there's the main part of my pendant. And what we're going to do now is we're going to make the hook. There is a couple of ways you can do this. I'm going to do a twisted one here, and I will show you how to do that, but you can see how, you can kind of see how that's twisted around itself. This wire is obviously, as you've been working with it, it's very thin, it's quite thin, and it breaks easily. It can break easily anyway. Twisting this around like this will make the whole thing stronger, so that when you hang this on a chain, it will be less likely to break. But if you don't like how that braided loop looks, you can just kind of ignore one of your tails here and just do a single layer one. But I'm going to do the twisted one here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut off, I still have a good maybe 8 inches of wire left. I'm just going to cut the rest of it off. And then I'm just going to take my 2 pieces here and just kind of separate them like that, pinch, and then turn my pendant. And that is going to, I don't know how well you can see that, but that is going to kind of twist the yarn, the wire around itself. I say yarn because it looks like the plies of yarn. If you're a crocheter or a knitter, this is basically what you're doing. You're plying the wire on itself. And then once you get that all twisted up, you're going to get your pencil again, and we're going to make the loop. So you're just going to wrap the wire around the pencil. You want to make it perpendicular to the pendant, because when you put a chain on, obviously that's how it's going to hang. If you put it sideways, the pendant will want to hang sideways. And then just, you're going to wrap the tail around the base of the loop a few times. After you do a couple, you can take the pencil out. Then you're just going to take the end, whatever end you've got there, and you're just going to tuck it in. This is the one place you may want to use, like I say, a pair of tweezers or a pair of pliers or something, just to make sure you've got the end in there so it doesn't scrape when you're wearing the pendant. And there we have it. There is our finished pendant. Like I say, the whole thing is very malleable, so if you want it a slightly different shape, you can kind of squeeze it, make everything go in the direction you want it to go. And then just, you can just stick a chain right through the hole, and there you have it. This would be a lovely thing for you to give to someone or to keep. And I hope that it inspires you to make some others and to do some experimentation with wires and beads. There's a lot of things you can do. We would love to see what you make. If you want to share them, you can tag us on Instagram. We are Canton CT Library, or you can share them to our Facebook page or use the hashtag anywhere, hashtag Canton CT Library. Thanks for watching, and we would love to see what you made. See you next time.